Do you have a dream of being on stage, delivering your own very, very powerful TEDx talk? If so, you'll want to listen in as Sarah Lawrence, the organizer of the TEDx TenayaPaseo events, and she shares the ins and outs of crafting your winning TEDx talk and how to find and contact the organizers of TEDx events near you.
Welcome to this week's episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build your dream business. And now here's your host, the Visibility Wiz, Cindy J.
Hi, I'm Cindy J, the Visibility Wiz, and welcome to this episode of Biz Success in 15. Today our guest is Sarah Lawrence, and she's an award-winning speaker, writer, and organizer of the TEDx TenayaPaseo. She is a master communicator and collaboration ninja masked as a mom of 6. She believes in helping people find their story, message, and helping them to make the impact that they've always wanted to make. Welcome, Sarah. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much. I'm super excited to be here.
Okay, and to begin with, can you tell us, especially because you are like the TEDx queen, right? So you know all about TEDx and you manage these things. So what's some of the first steps that someone should take if they have a dream of one day being a TEDx speaker?
So the first step is always to know your story and know your talk. TEDx is a huge credibility opportunity and huge on branding, right? And so if you really want to be on that stage, the first thing you need to do is understand your story and understand that what your idea we're spreading is. When you reach out to organizers, when you start to look for events to be on, you need to be very, very confident about what you're going to go on stage with. So the first thing that I always tell everyone to do is to start to write out your talk. And when I mean write out your talk, I mean start from the ground up. Take all of these ideas that are in your brain, put them down on paper, keep a file on your computer, start brainstorming, mind map, see all of your ideas out in front of you. And then pick the one that you believe in the most, and then write out a talk. It won't be your final talk. It won't be a perfect talk. It won't be the talk that you ever go on stage with. But here's what that provides you, is it gives you an opportunity to really get in alignment with what you want to say on stage and the story you want to go forward with. So start to write out your talk. Think about your idea worth sharing. Think about the story you're going to attach to it. Think about how you can make an impact with that talk and visualize it. Once you're at that point and you are super confident and you feel good about your topic and your talk, like I said, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to redo it 100 times. You're going to spend hours and hours and hours and hours on it. But once you're at the point where you feel confident with that topic, then I suggest looking for events around you. Start to reach out to organizers. The reason that I always say start with your talk is because when you reach out to those organizers, they're going to ask you, what is your topic? Mm-hmm. What is your talk title? Tell us a little bit about it. And if you don't have that sense of confidence about that, then you are way behind on the 8 ball.
You know, how do we even find the organizers or the events that we want to reach out to when we're first beginning?
So when you're looking for the TEDx stage, you're going to go to TED.com and look for TEDx events. It actually gives you a search option to be able to do that. But as you're practicing and as you're getting on more stages, because like you said, you don't just like one day walk onto a TEDx stage and that's your first talk ever and that's how it is, right? So you want to get on smaller stages, which is such a cool thing because those are everywhere. So you want to get your talk in front of as many people as possible to get feedback. This might mean Toastmasters clubs. I am a huge advocate for Toastmasters. I am a Toastmaster. I have been for years. I go to the same club with amazing people. And the reason of that is because Toastmasters is a fantastic place to fail forward with your talks. Mm-hmm. You can do your same talk over and over. Yes, they have an education program, but you can do the same talk over and over and then improve it, right? So it gives you an audience to be able to do that. You can also reach out to local networks and organizations and ask to go speak about whatever your topic is there. Make sure that the networks and the organizations you're reaching out to are your market, right? The people who are ready to receive the message that you're talking about, the topic you're about to talk about. But you can get stages anywhere, smaller stages to get this talk out. Even now, you could do your talk as a webinar, invite people to a webinar just to practice it and get feedback. We do this really cool thing in my circles in my community, where we do random brainstorming sessions. So if one of us really hits a wall or gets stuck, we'll send a message out and be like, hey, I'm going to be on Zoom in 30 minutes. I really need feedback. I really need someone to see me do this. Whoever's available, can you jump on? And it's not ever a huge crowd, but 3, 4, 5 people can give you amazing feedback. And that's how you can improve. So utilize your community, utilize the resources you have to really get your talk to a point that it's amazing. And you can do that simultaneously. You can be working on these smaller stages, improving your talk while you're looking for TEDx events. Keep in mind, a lot of the TEDx events start to get speakers and prepare up to a year ahead of time. So if you apply for a TEDx and you get accepted as a speaker, you have a year to work on your talk. So do things, kind of together. Don't think this is a step-by-step process, more of a, how do I just become a better speaker? How do I get to my goal? And sometimes that means multitasking.
So even to become a TEDx speaker, whenever you first apply, don't you have to give them videos of you speaking?
That is organizer based. So each organizer of TEDx, the TEDx event, has their own way of selecting speakers, and they have their own qualifications. The only things that TED really wants from TEDx is that the speakers and the event stays under their guidelines. Now, their guidelines seem simple. The guidelines simply are stay away from anything religious, politics, controversy, make sure it's good science. It gets a little bit deeper than that, but that's really the groundwork to go forward with a TEDx talk, right? So when organizers start putting speakers on their stages, it's up to them to select those speakers based on what their theme is, based on the integrity of their event, based on their community, right? Because certain communities are going to receive messages differently. So for example, when I started to look for speakers, number one, I knew personally a lot of the speakers who applied, and the integrity of my event was super important. So I found a selection committee that was outside of my circle, and I sent all my applicants through the selection committee. And I stepped out of the selection process as much as I could. And that allowed other people and a whole different set of eyes on speakers who applied. Some organizers hand select speakers. The ones who are asking for video, again, that's up to them. So don't think you have to have like a scissor reel or videos ready. What I would have ready is a 2 to 3 minute video saying why your topic matters, why your topic or your talk is an idea worth sharing. I would have that ready at all times, but don't feel like that needs to be like a professional sizzle reel. That's really just an asset you should be ready to share.
Okay, sounds great. Before we continue talking about these really great tips to be a TEDx speaker, can you share a personal or business challenge that you had to overcome in order to achieve your level of success?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that really the wall that I hit over and over and over again is imposter syndrome. And I talk about this a lot, is in the back of my mind, I constantly think I'm not good enough. And when I talk to other entrepreneurs, this is really common. This idea that we don't belong here and like we didn't earn this, right? And what I've really started doing is, I can't get rid of the voice in the back of my head that tells me that, but I can realign it and I can change my framework around it. So I've really started saying, when I hear that you're not good enough or you don't belong here, okay, why? Like, let me start stacking evidence that shows that I do belong here, that I am good enough. And imposter syndrome has been huge for me. So one thing that I can say for anyone who's really challenged with that imposter syndrome and moving forward in their business is don't try to fight that, but instead stack evidence for the other way. So when you hear I'm not good enough, start thinking, why am I good enough? Let's find all the amazing reasons that I am, and reframe that. And that will be 100 times more successful than trying to ignore the negative self-talk. Reframing does so much more for you. And that mindset will allow you to take those steps forward in your business, those steps forward to become more successful. And also I believe in baby steps, right? Like, I don't think you have to like jump and leap forward. You can baby step your way the entire way and still be insanely successful.
I love that. And I can see even how that aligns with speaking. I know that public speaking is, they say it's the #1 fear of people. And so if somebody does have that desire to be a speaker and to do a TEDx speech, and they're thinking, well, who am I to talk about this? Or I don't know enough. They're facing that imposter syndrome just like you did. And so then it's like, why am I experienced enough to share what I'm sharing? And it's based on, so then you're asking yourself the right questions that are giving yourself the evidence that you can speak about whatever it is you want to speak about.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that can make a huge difference in everything you do going forward, right? Because your business aligns with who you are. And no matter what your business is, once you get your head straight and you can move forward in a positive way, it can change everything.
Mm-hmm. And I know so many people, they try to either resist it by saying, well, if they hear the voice, you're not good enough, they try to resist it or ignore it, which just deepens it, because what you resist persists. So therefore, whenever you approach it by just asking the opposite, well, why am I good enough? That really eases the fears, and you're cohabitating peacefully with the voices in your head.
Yes, exactly. That was a brilliant way to phrase that. Yep.
Okay. And going back, to the TEDx speeches. So you want to find your topic and apply for the TEDx speech. And it's usually 6 months to a year or more out. And then you want to practice it everywhere. So what are some of the trademarks of a successful speech? How long should they be? And is there any particular points that really needs to be in a speech?
That's a fantastic question. And that's something that a lot of speakers who want to be TEDx speakers don't necessarily consider. A TEDx style talk is very different from your typical talk you're going to see in many industries. A lot of speakers that I work with are amazing in their own environment and on their own stages. They can get up and they can talk about their content for hours and hours and just kill it. But TEDx is a little bit different. A lot of speakers know how to drive with story, know how to take their story and really drive their entire talk with it. With a TEDx style talk, your story is not most of your speech. It is part of your speech. Your story drives your credibility for your talk, but it is not your talk. And that mindset is really hard for a lot of speakers to really adjust because they're so story driven. I'm very story driven. Mm-hmm. So a really good TEDx talk has a lot of content, and it shows the world and it shows the community why your idea we're sharing is so, so important. It shows consequence. If you don't act on this idea we're sharing, what's going to happen? Or if you do act, what's going to happen? It's really a problem that humanity faces and how you're going to solve it. So your story acts more like credibility and a why than like the driving force, like many, many talks. TED allows 18 minutes for a TEDx talk or a TED talk.
18 minutes?
18.
Wow, I thought they were shorter.
No, yeah, they're 18. My speakers actually get 15 minutes. I put a 15-minute hard deadline because I wanted to be able to have a schedule that allowed for a lot of speakers at my event. But they don't need to go that long either. Some speakers do amazing, like 5 to 7 minute speeches for the TEDx stage, and they are phenomenal. But you just can't go over that. That's a very, very hard deadline. So even though my hard deadline is 15 minutes, I'm telling all my speakers, practice your speech at 13 minutes. That 2-minute grace period allows for the bigger stage, the bigger audience, for the bigger laughter, for the bigger sadness, for the bigger pauses. So when practicing and writing it for the first time, shoot for 8 to 10. Make it kind of this 8 to 10. Let's see where we're at, because I'm going to have to add stuff. I'm going to have to adapt my story, all of that.
I love those points. I know for myself, whenever I've spoke, I will sit there and I'll rehearse it, and I'm like right on time, but it's never the same time whenever I deliver it in person, be it at Toastmasters or somewhere else. It's like so then I know sometimes I have to cut out part of it, and it's knowing what I can cut out and still make the speech be communicate the message. So whenever somebody's doing, like you say, 8 to 10 minutes, that gives them a lot of time for the extra. So I've never thought of that, but that's really good. So even if somebody's supposed to do a 7-minute speech, do you then tell them to try to practice it at 4 or 5 minutes to allow for the extra time?
Yeah, absolutely. And try it in front of audiences that you think will match the size audience you're going to be in ultimately. So you can gauge time.
Mhm.
Because also remember that when you're doing humor, jokes don't always land the way that you hope they will. And some things that you think are not funny, the audience will laugh at. It's really hard to gauge an audience. So making your talk shorter so you can allow for extra time, and trying to practice in front of an appropriate size audience that you're going to be in ultimately is some other amazing tips that will help you really get into your time. But that initial creating the talk, yes, if you're looking at 7 minutes, try to create it around 4 or 5, and go from there. And you can always add and adapt as needed.
And talking about the audience, you're speaking to the audience. How do you, I've always been taught that I want to adapt my speech to the audience. So if I'm speaking to women, it might be different than if I'm speaking to men and women together. If I'm speaking to 20-year-olds, it might be different than if I was speaking to 50-year-olds. So how do you start to even understand what type of audience you'll be speaking to at a TEDx talk?
That's fantastic. That's a fantastic question. And I don't think I've ever been asked that before, because everyone assumes it's a pretty generic audience, right? So here's the thing is everyone who, for the most part, I can't make the generalization, but for the most part, people who are in a TEDx audience or people who are watching TEDx videos are very familiar with this idea that TED is this brand that our ideas we're sharing. It's very content driven. It's very community driven. So your audience for a TEDx talk is kind of in there with this idea of what it is. Now, when you're practicing and you're getting in front of other audience members that maybe aren't familiar with TEDx and maybe don't have that same mindset, your audience changes. So keep that in mind, that when we're talking about TEDx specific talks, you are really working towards the audience that understands the TEDx environment, that understands what the motto is, that the purpose of your talk is. So when you're practicing that, you might want to have something in your intro, or you might want to do a quick disclaimer like, hey, this is really a TEDx talk, and the TEDx audience expects this to be very content driven. So whatever feedback you provide me, could you give me feedback on these 4 things? Or if you see anything within this kind of spectrum, if you're doing it for feedback. Now, if you're doing it just to practice it, again, you don't know what your audience, you're going to have a mixed audience. If we're talking about talks outside of TEDx, the best thing you can ever do is talk to the organizer of the event, and do it several times. Do it when you first get booked for the talk. Do it a couple weeks out, do it a week out, do it a couple days before, because an audience's dynamic can change and you cannot adapt to that if you don't know. So always make sure you're in touch with the organizer and you're conscious of who is sitting in your audience so you can adapt your talk if needed.
Thank you very much. Great information, Sarah. And I know that you have a business strategy that we can implement in 15 minutes or less to build our business. Can you share what that is?
Absolutely. So my business strategy that will get you there every single time is take a step. Now, I'm not talking about take a step like physically. Don't, you can maybe go walk around the block. But here's the thing. Do one action every single day that pushes your business forward. It does not have to be a jump and a leap. It can be a baby step. But you should have on your to-do list every single day one thing that is pushing your business forward that takes you 15 minutes or less. Just doing one thing every single day will build up and build up and build up. Now, to do that, you need to know, right? So you do this one thing, then every action has a follow-up action. So I say, okay, I did this one thing today. What is the next thing that comes tomorrow? And then that day, what's the next thing that comes tomorrow? So do your one action and be conscious of that follow-up action. And those actions should not take you more than 15 minutes. Maybe it's someone you need to get in contact with. Maybe it's an email you need to send. Maybe it's a funnel you need to set up. So be conscious of that. And every day, if you do that, then you will definitely move your business forward in a big way.
That's a really, really wonderful strategy. And nobody has ever shared that before. So it's really
good.
a great strategy. is just, and it's so logical that because we're continuously wanting to build on what we have. So I love that. And Sarah, I know that you have a spectacular gift for us. So can you share what it is?
Sure. So my gift is the top 5 TEDx tip or talk tips. And it's just 5 tips really quick that will really help you in developing and moving forward with your TEDx speech.
Mm-hmm. And in that, does it also tell you about how to contact organizers? And if not, can you share with us how we even find the organizers of the TEDx?
That is not in my gift, and I absolutely can. So when you go to TED.com, it will have a place that allows you to search for TEDx events. You put in your city or your zip code, and it'll bring up TEDx events near you. In those TEDx events, you click on the event, and the organizer will be there. Now, the organizer's email may not always be there, but sometimes like their Facebook contact is or their LinkedIn profile is. So click on the contact information that's available in TED and send them a message. You may need to send a couple messages because organizers are usually entrepreneurs or they work full-time jobs, and TEDx events are all voluntary. So keep in mind that if they don't answer you right away, be persistent. Reach out a couple times. Hey, I contacted you. I haven't heard back. I'm just following up, this sort of thing. And, that's really the best way to get into organizers is start on that TED.com website, search for events that are in your area or events you'd like to speak at, contact the organizer, and then follow up with them.
Okay, Sarah, so with the steps that somebody should take if they want to be a TEDx speaker, first of all, they need to hop on over to bizsuccessin15.com/Sarah. That's BIZ success nin1515.com/Sarah, all lowercase, SARAH. Don't forget the H, SARAH. And then you'll be able to download Sarah's wonderful gift of the top 5 TEDx preparation tips. And then you want to follow those, and you want to be sure to go to TED.com and start checking out the organizers so you can pitch whichever topic you choose. And then this way you'll have the steps that you need to continue to practice your speech and really have a winning TEDx speech.
Yes, exactly.
Sound right? Good. And Sarah, do you have any parting words for us?
Always move forward with the second step. So the first step you do in any direction is brave. And you're going to have to get over fear, and you're going to have to really move towards that fear. But the second step in any direction is most profound. When you take that second step towards your goal, you are completely off the cliff. And so you are going to find that your most intense, amazing moments, your most successful moments is when you've taken that second step towards whatever you want to do.
So yes, just keep taking the next step and the next step and the next step. And that's the way you're going to succeed with whatever your big dreams are.
Yep, absolutely.
And Sarah, thank you very much for being my guest today. It's definitely been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, feel free to share it with your friends. You'll want to hop on over to bizsuccessin15.com/Sarah, and you'll find all links from today's show. I'll put a link to TED up there too for you. You'll be able to re-listen to Sarah's words of wisdom and catch up on past episodes that you might have missed. While you're there, the number one thing you want to do is download Sarah's gift to you, the top 5 TEDx preparation tips. So I hope you have a great week, and be sure to tune in next time with another great guest. Big hugs.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Biz Success in 15. For all links mentioned in today's show and to watch or listen to previous episodes, visit bizsuccessin15.com. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for another amazing guest.